created by analytically driven thoughts to thwart offenses. And man, it worked. It worked great. And teams performed better because of it. But from the overall standpoint of the game, the entertainment value of the game, it was not good.
Ken, good to see you. I know you talked about the Cardinals. I don't know how much you caught of what we said, but let's just go right to the Braun plus Kratz prediction. Chaim Bloom and Skip Schumacher in 2025 after this team sells pieces over the next couple months. What do you think?
Not the most outrageous thing I've ever heard, that's for sure. And I would say maybe Skip has a better chance of being there than Chaim. I just see Skip as being a guy who's going to be out of Miami for sure. I'm not certain that the Cardinals will want to elevate Chaim. He's a special advisor now. It certainly is possible, and you can look at Boston in one of two ways. A lot of the things that he did, you're seeing the fruits of that right now. At the same time, it took the new regime coming in to dramatically overhaul their pitching program. They're pitching like this with similar players that they had before. So what's the difference? The difference is the new regime, the emphasis that they've made in certain areas with pitching. And that, I would say, is kind of a negative on Chaim Bloom's tenure there. So I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but the Cardinals are, without question, a team that we are all looking at and wondering what their future is going to be, both immediately, can they salvage this season, and long-term, will John Mozeliak remain president of baseball operations?
Well, how long has Mozeliak been in? We just had this question. I'm trying to find it right now. When did he take over? 2007.
He's one of the longest tenured heads of baseball operations. Cashman is longer. That might be it.
2007. Jocketty left in 2007. DeWitt named Mozeliak the interim, and then he kind of took it over. Okay. I mean, great. He's been there for, almost 17 years now. So, but my question still stands. If they go into a rebuild, a sell, does that mean Mozeliak has to go? And if Mozeliak goes, then probably Ollie Marmol goes with him, because usually whoever they bring in usually wants their own guy. So how much pressure is on Mozeliak right now? Because I know he's felt it before, and he feels the pressure from the Cardinals fan, because they're not an organization that says, we're scrapping it down, we're rebuilding. Cardinal fans usually don't accept that. So where do we stand with his future?
There's a lot of pressure on Mozeliak right now. There's a lot of pressure on that organization in general, including on Ollie Marmol as the manager. The fans there are quite frustrated. And remember, they sold last year. They traded veterans away last year, so this would be a second straight year of deconstructing after they built up again. Remember, they added those starting pitchers in the offseason, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and of course Sonny Gray. They reinforced their bullpen as well. The one thing they didn't do, we talked about this on the broadcast the other day, AJ, was add to their offense. And they were only 19th in the league in runs scored last year. Obviously, Tommy Edman got hurt. Jordan Walker has not proven to be what they thought. Goldschmidt and Arenado have gone backwards. There are a lot of reasons why offensively they're not who they should have been or were expected to be. Nolan Gorman is another player who has not produced the way they thought. So there are a ton of questions with this team. And when you ask about the future of Mozeliak, we have to see how these next 2 months play out. First of all, one, does Ollie Marmol survive this? Does he get to manage this team for the rest of the season? They just gave him an extension in March. Literally just gave him an extension less than 2 months ago. That was John Mozeliak's call. Didn't want a lame duck manager. All right, that's question number one. Question number two, do they get back in it? Do they revive? Last night was a start. It was against the Angels. And, okay, they've had 2 good games in a row. Let's see them put together 2 weeks of good games, and then we can start talking. Right now, this is one of the most disappointing teams in baseball. No question about that. And as John Mozeliak said on the radio in St. Louis the other day, when they don't perform, people will be held accountable, and he understands that among those people might be himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and more info on Fair Territory if you want to check it out from yesterday's show on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. All right, let's spend some good time here on not 1, not 2, but 3 articles posted by Ken today in The Athletic on how to save the starting pitcher. So let's basically go down the line on articles, Ken. So let's start with the first one that you put out there. Can MLB save the starting pitcher? The search for solutions to baseball's existential crisis. Can you give us the background and how you put this together?
Well, first of all, it was co-written with Jason Stark, and Jason actually did the bulk of the writing here. This started in spring training. We both had separate ideas about starting pitching. I thought about talking to guys like Scherzer and Verlander and a number of other starting pitchers and just asking what they thought, what needs to happen to revive the role to prominence. Jason, at the same time, had a similar thought based on the lack of six-inning starts that we're seeing in this day and age compared to the past. And he was talking at the time to executives and different people in the game and just about what could be done. So basically, we kind of came together on this and we combined our information, combined our thoughts. And the first story, the one you mentioned, is the main one. And it regards what is being called an existential crisis in baseball because the starting pitcher's role has decreased in such a marked fashion. Now, in that story, we discussed the problem and we discussed 4 potential solutions. One was requiring starters to pitch 6 innings per game. Another was the double hook. You've seen this idea floated. It's been implemented in the Atlantic League, in which the moment you lose your starting pitcher, your DH is gone as well. And there are other ideas that we mentioned in addition to that. And there was another story that we have in this package that lists a number of other ideas. And some of them are rather extreme. I get it. But these are things being talked about not just by Ken Rosenthal and Jason Stark, but people in the game. We don't make this stuff up. We also acknowledge, and we know, and the people who are talking to us know, that some of these things will never come to pass. But again, there was another idea in the first story, ban the sweeper. If that is determined to be a pitch that gets pitchers hurt, okay, maybe take it out of the equation. And we've done things in the game to take other things out of the equation. So in theory, if this is really shown to be a damaging thing, you could do that. Limiting velocity is another thing. Now, this gets to a level where I don't think anyone is comfortable. You're telling pitchers not to be the best versions of themselves. I guess banning the sweeper would fall in that category as well. But again, these are the kinds of things that were just being discussed in the game that we kind of just expanded upon and presented. Now, are there any easy solutions? No, there are not easy solutions. But we all, I would agree, or we all, I would think, agree that this is a problem, that we want to see the days revived where, as we ask in the first sentence of the first story, who's pitching tonight? That used to be an exciting question in the sport. It's not so exciting anymore. So that was the genesis of this. And the third story was conversations that we had with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander about this problem. And both were very eloquent and thoughtful in their answers about what they wanted to see happen.
Who is the most against this? Players who are making the money and, having a career, whether or not they get injured or not, they're still paid? Or is it ownership who is losing? There's no bigger loss in baseball, in the industry, than the injured list. So who is most against having rules implemented to stop this or try to curtail it?
Eric, I don't know that anyone's against it, honestly. And just for the reasons you said, owners recognize that starting pitching is valuable and you want fewer injuries. And players, of course, want starting pitchers to be paid the way they have been in the past to return to that exalted place they have in the game or had in the game. So I don't know that anyone is against the idea of restoring starting pitching per se. Rob Manfred mentioned it at the World Series last year that it was something he'd like to see. Where the disagreement comes in is in these various suggestions. And like anything else, you can poke holes in any of these things. And we can go through them if you want, but you get rather into the woods with it or into the weeds with it. And it's difficult. Some of these things would have unintended consequences. For instance, the double hook rule where you lose the DH, well, you're devaluing the DH. Some people have a concern about that within the union. So there are all these different factors, but I don't know of anyone who watches baseball who doesn't want to see the days return where we had a marquee starting pitching matchup seemingly every night. And we've lost that, and it's a problem, as Max Scherzer points out, from the entertainment aspect of the sport. The sport is less entertaining without these big starting pitchers going out there and doing what they do, just as it was less entertaining when it was a slow pace of play and when you had offenses just restricted by defensive shifts. There were rules made to ease those problems, to help the game move along better, to theoretically help offense improve as well. And in this particular case with starting pitching, when you're losing entertainment value there, that is why rules changes might make sense.
All right, so I got to ask Ken, because I was listening to what you were saying, banning certain pitches, banning this and banning that. Like, who's going to be the judge of that? There's going to be a guy in the stand saying that broke too much horizontally. That's an illegal pitch. If we throw the flag, like I get some of these ideas, but how about we just get back to valuing starting pitching? And because the owners in the front offices are like, well, starting pitchers used to get paid on 200 innings. If we knock that down to 150 innings, we don't have to pay them as much. Then we can use other arms who then get overused, get hurt, and then, oh, guess what? We don't have to pay them as much either. And it's a bad cycle. It starts in the minor leagues, right? 6-game series in the minor leagues. Okay, a guy throws once a week. They don't prep to throw every fifth day like they do in the big leagues. Oh, we can't throw him every fifth day. He hasn't done it yet. Paul Skeens, right? Oh, he hasn't thrown 7 innings before ever in his career. We'll look at Paul Skeens again. Oh, only 84 pitches because that's the most he's ever thrown. Meanwhile, at LSU, he's throwing 125 a game, right? So it needs to start at a lower level and then work its way to the major leagues if you want to value starting pitching. But the way we're doing it right now, it's never going to value. Everything is geared towards devaluing starting pitching because it makes the owners pay less for them.
AJ, that's exactly the point of these stories. And that's why we wrote them, because it has been devalued. And I'm not going to sit here and disparage analytics. Analytics have done a great deal for our understanding of the game, has helped the players improve in many ways, in certain cases. Analytics in general, great. But what happened with shifts? Analytically driven strategies made the game less entertaining. The starting pitching thing that we're talking about comes as a result in part of analytical strategies again. And it's no third time through the order. Bring in as many relievers as you can. Keep doing these things. And what we're talking about here is trying to guard against that by enacting rules that would force teams to value starting pitchers more. Now, some of those rules we can all agree would probably be impractical. And we know that. Jason and I knew that when we wrote the stories. We understood that when you talk about banning a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, it's probably a little out there. Banning the sweeper might be a little out there. And for the reasons you say, AJ, hey, how do you know which is a sweeper, which is a slider? What are you talking about here? So all of these things, in my view, are good to talk about. Certainly things the sport should be exploring because, yeah, starting pitchers are still getting paid a lot of money, but they're getting paid a lot of money, the most money, in fact, but not producing the way they once did. So wouldn't you want to get back to them being productive and highly paid if you're an owner? And if you're a player, yeah, you'd want that position valued again. And it might come at the expense of relief pitchers or DHs. Well, in the end, all of that probably would balance out. The aggregate money might be the same.
For a year and a half, you have been coming on this show, and I don't know that I've ever disagreed with something you've written. But you wrote in there, in the article, and it was a great analogy, what happens if the NFL would find an analytical breakthrough that 4 quarterbacks are difficult to read on defense, and you would have Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes might not even be in there in the fourth quarter, is what you and Jason wrote. But
guilty, yes.
But if that's what helps the Chiefs win, every Chiefs fan would be 100% fine with that. So how much of this is getting away from, like, analytics is not doing this to 100% save money. They're doing this because they think this is their best chance of winning, regardless of human beings.
Absolutely right, Eric. And that is the whole point. That was what defensive shifts were all about. They were created by analytically driven thoughts to thwart offenses. And man, it worked. It worked great. And teams performed better because of it. But from the overall standpoint of the game, the entertainment value of the game, it was not good. And that's why shifts had to be banned the way that they were. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. Now, I will say, again, there are no easy answers here. There are problems with every potential solution. I understand that. But at the same time, I want to see those aces back in the game. I think fans want to see that. It used to be when we were kids, not so long ago for some of us, long ago for more of us maybe, that you go to the ballpark and maybe it's, I don't know, pick a matchup. And it was exciting. It was exciting, the anticipation, and we've lost it. We've lost it with openers. We've lost it with 4 innings and out. We've lost it in all kinds of ways. And in my view, and in Jason's view, it needs to come back. That's why we wrote the stories.
You talk about aces, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, who you talked to as well. Can you give a little inkling on their thoughts and what they came up with as well to make this better for pitchers in Major League Baseball?
Well, Max has all kinds of ideas, and he was a proponent of the double hook in the last round of labor negotiations. And it really never even advanced within the union because of the potential to devalue the DH. Now, he has some really interesting ideas about the double hook, and he's saying basically, if that's not enough to help starting pitchers, help teams leave starting pitchers in longer, then up the ante. That's what he said. Keep upping the ante. Maybe give them a free pinch runner, in which a runner comes into the game for a slower player and then gets removed. So the slower player, presumably a better hitter, can remain in the game if you keep your starting pitcher in. All of these different thoughts he had. Justin Verlander talked about conversations he had with Max last year when they were with the Mets about this very issue. And they talked about the double hook and things like that. And he had some pretty eloquent thoughts about just where the game has gone. And also concern about what is done to youth baseball. Because what happens in youth baseball? They follow everything that happens in the major leagues, minors, colleges, right on down. It trickles down to youth baseball. And this emphasis on throwing hard at the age of 7, all of these things, that is kind of one of the things he discussed. And both those guys, they're the 2 leaders right now in innings pitched and games started among active players. Those are the kinds of people that should be listened to. And they had some great thoughts, and I would hope that people reading this, people within Major League Baseball reading this, maybe want to accelerate the process a little bit. Now, they're conducting a study right now about pitching injuries. MLB is, we've written about this, and it seems to me they want to get through that before they take any action. They kind of want to get a better understanding of what is going on. But again, for the sake of the sports entertainment value, I keep coming back to that, I know. This needs to change. It needs to be a situation where the starting pitcher is restored to his past level of stature.
Ken, since you want things restored to their past stature, and you're a man of certain stature, why is it that you hate Gatorade baths? I mean, are you just the old man on the lawn? Get off my lawn? Because I remember once I gave you a champagne bath, and you just couldn't get enough of it.
That's a slight exaggeration. And actually, I was tethered to the wall, and I could not move, and you just had me like a sitting duck. Now, I don't hate Gatorade baths. I said on my show, it's an occupational hazard, but they do mess up suits pretty badly on occasion.
Oh my God!
I got one ruined last week, and I was like, come on, man, enough of this. So I don't hate them. I understand why people do them, but at the same time, I can live without them.
Is it just because your suit? It's because you're rich, Ken. You can buy all the suits. You probably get your suits for free.
That's right. I've got a lucrative endorsement with Hugo Boss, and there's just 35 suits sitting in my closet, AJ.
See, there you go. I'm looking for a Chick-fil-A sponsorship. Look at me go, Ken. You're looking for Hugo
begging.
Boss?
You're begging is what you're doing.
Literally the whole show today. He's working hard on it. Well, more on that story, too. A fun little bit from Ken on Fair Territory if you want to check it out. And also check out all 3 articles released by Ken, Jason Stark, and Stephen Nesbitt was in on one of them, I believe, as well, right?
No, just Jason and I on this one.
Just Jason and you on those 3. Okay, got it. Ken, thank you. Appreciate you. We'll see you on Fair Territory Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Kratz is getting out of here pretty soon. So just a reminder, first off, Fair Territory is out Mondays and Thursdays. Thursday's edition live with Alana Rizzo, 12:30 Eastern time. If we didn't get to any of your questions to ask them live to Ken. I know who asked us a question while we were deep in our discussions. Daniel said,
seriously,
any updates on the A's Stadium situation? And the answer is mostly no.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.